Hi everyone, welcome to our channel Prince Academy, and today I am going to give a brief explanation about the topic of slums from the subject of Urban Sociology MSOE 004 MSO program Ignou. And actually this video is mainly useful for second year Ignou students and as well as UPSC aspirants, those who select their optional as Sociology. So in this video we are going to learn the definition of slums and the nature of slums and types of slums and what are the characteristics of slums, and in Indian context the socio-economic profile of Indian slums and approaches to the slum problems. Of course this was a lengthy topic and I'm going to break it into two parts. So this is the part 1. Let's start with the definition of slums. Slum is basically an area where people live in highly congested conditions without any basic amenity of life. Slum is an area people live in highly congested, an area which having highly congested conditions and without any basic amenities, and that area is called as slum. Next, nature of slum. How the slum will be there. See, area of having substandard housing conditions within a city. No proper housing conditions are available in slum. Slum is a complex product of many products, and low income forces people to live in slums. Low income forces people to live in slums. Poverty is also one of the factors to emerge slum. Lack of basic infrastructure like drains, drinking water, electricity. No basic infrastructure, no basic facilities, no basic amenities, and poor maintenance of dryness systems and sewage systems, and lack of drinking water and improper electricity. These are all the nature of slum. Slum residents do not mind that. As I earlier said, there was no proper sanitation facilities in slums, so slum residents do not mind that. Let's see types of slum areas. There are mainly 3 types. The first one is original slum, an area from very beginning. It was an area which was emerged from the very beginning. So, and the second one is second type of slum is created by the departure of middle class families to other sections. And the third one is the most unpleasant type of slum. It is actually a phenomenon of transition, and this slum consists prostitutions, beggars, alcoholics, criminals, etc. These are the 3 types of slums. Let's see characteristics of slums one by one. Inadequate housing. There were no proper houses constructed, and there were no room spaces available there. This leads to overcrowding in those slums, and these houses are very cheap for rent. So they're called a characteristic called inadequate housing. Deficient facilities. As I earlier mentioned, that a slum doesn't have any basic facilities and any basic amenities. Next, overcrowding. Due to the poor housing conditions and poor sanitation, there was a result to overcrowding. Next, poor sanitation. As I earlier mentioned, that lack of basic amenities like lack of dryness system, lack of sewage system, lack of latrine facilities. This leads to poor sanitation, and slum residents do not mind that. Understand? Next, deviant behavior and apathy and social isolation. Actually, the slum area which was socially isolated from the actual modern city. They don't have any communication skills with others. They don't. Other people won't allow those slums to communicate with them, to interact with them. So these are all the characteristics of slum. Next, see Indian context, socio-economic profile of Indian slums. Coming to the Indian context of socio-economic profile of Indian slums. This is a data from the NSS, National Sample Survey Organization. The National Sample Survey Organization provide data related to types of slums. Understand? Let's see. Let's start with urban population actually increasing. Increase of urban population and decrease in investment in urban development, which creates shelter problem and deficiencies in basic amenities. It's a casual one, right? Urban population as well increasing as well, right? And the investment in urban development is gradually decreasing. So it leads to shelter problem to those population because population is increased, and deficiencies in basic amenities due to decrease in investment in urban development. The deficiency in basic amenities have arisen. Next, NSS4. NSSO provide data related to types of slums and developments required to slums and interdependencies between poverty and quality of life. In Indian context, coming to socio-economic profile of Indian slums, this complete whole topic mentions about the data related to those slum areas, about their location, and they're having the water facilities and their sanitation facilities and their drainage facilities and their types of house, and what are the steps taken by the government and what are the steps taken by the NGO to develop, to eradicate those slums. Understand what are the approaches to those slum problems, and what are the requirements to decrease the slum area and to maintain equality among people and in societies. Right? Let's see one by one. In the 49th round that was conducted by 1993, provide information on the quality of housing and amenities. 49th round covers all the slums declared by local bodies, and some of the slums are identified by field officials. And coming to the point of area, they mention, NSSO data mention that 90% of slums are resided in residential areas. 90% of slums are in residential areas, and 5% of slums are available in industrial area. Out of 100%, 98% of slums having transport facility within 1 kilometer. They are very reachable to the road, motorable road within 1 kilometer, and 90% out of those 100% of slums, 90% of slums having primary school facilities. They have school facilities within 1 kilometer, and it was similar to non-slum areas, as well as non-slum areas having the same facility, that was having primary school with facility within 1 kilometer. Next, 15% of urban household slum area, and 62% of slums. Let's see, 15% of urban households reside in slum area. Out of 15%, 62% of slums on the basis of public land are available on public land, and 13% of slums on the account of Indian Railways. Indian Railways consists of 13% slums, and 53% of slums on the basis of municipal bodies. 53%, that was a huge number, based on municipal bodies. So having pressure on local bodies to mobilize their resources provided by the government, to mobilize their resources internally, and not been able to launch massive slum clearance programs. And due to political pressure on local bodies, they are unable to launch such a big massive slum clearance programs, and they are not allowed to spend their fund provided by the government due to the political pressure. Let's see. According to NSS data, let's relate the data with water facility in slum areas. 15% of urban households reside in slum area. As I earlier mentioned, that 15% of urban households reside in slum area. Out of the 15%, 35% live in kacha houses, and 34% people live in semi-pakka houses, and greater than 30% of people live in pakka houses. And out of 35% of kacha people living in slum areas, 30% have their own tap facility, and coming to semi-pakka, 73% have tap facility, and pakka 87% have tap facility. So these are the results provided by the NSSO data. Let's see. 65% of slum population among all the slum area reside in urban households, having 65% of slum population with a tap water facility. And let's see, having the tap water is not a problem, but access to the facility is a main problem, right? Let's see, access to the facility. 64% households using community tap. Most of the out of 100%, mostly 64% households using community tap. They don't have the proper tap facility within their home, right? 25% non-slum households with this problem still exist with this problem. Non-slum households. Let's see. There was an assumption made here by the government, but the NSSO field officials have found out that some of the real data is available with them. Let's see and compare with those assumption made by political leaders. Means such as 13% are people living in kacha houses, and 25% living in semi-pakka houses, and 60% living in pakka houses. This is an assumption, and it was misleading the government to spend the funds. Understand? And the real data that was found by NSSO officials, that is 53% people live in kacha houses and 19% people living in semi-pakka houses, and only 3% living in pakka houses. All these people are reside in slum area. Let's see, coming to the sanitation point of view. 31% of urban households having no toilet facility. They don't have any toilet facility, and 54% of slums not having toilet facility. Let's see, free community toilets built by state government and local bodies, but they were unable to use due to lack of proper maintenance. Let's see, coming to the dryness sector. 52% of households having total absence of drainage facility. Almost more than 50% of households doesn't have any drainage facility near their slums. 60% of slums facing water lodging in rainy season. Generally, in rainy season, most of the slums will be water lodged. We'll see in regular news, right? Let's see, what are the developments made by the government agencies and the NGOs to eradicate slums? They provide water supply facilities up to 50%, and road facilities up to 42%, and drainage and garbage facilities up to 30%, and latent facilities up to 18%, and sewage facilities less than 10%. Let's see, approaches to the slum problems. Traditional welfarist approach. This approach advocate the policy of destroying the slums, tearing it down, and redevelopment with subsidized housing. Completely remove the slum area and clean it, and rebuild the area with subsidized housing system. And this system was criticized, and poor people arriving in cities will become difficult to handle because of this subsidized housing system. Rural people are attracted to cities, and poor people arriving in cities will become difficult to handle. Geeta Devan Verma 2000 had another aspect from the traditional welfarist approach. In her work mentioned that slumming India. According to Geeta, instead of developing and spending funds on urban resources or a cyber park, government should spend to clear few slums. She was telling that instead of constructing a 200-acre cyber park, instead of constructing a big universities, government should spend at least a few amount to clear these slums. It will help people. Understand? Next, second one, new development approach. In this new development approach, there are two fundamental ideas. So one is development of effective community feeling. The second one is development of self-help and citizens' participation. In this new development approach, they mentioned that two fundamental ideas which overall picture notice that which creates a self-help, self-motivation, self-awareness among the slum dwellers. So it will help to eradicate slums. So we need few elements to follow those fundamental ideas. One is creation of a sense of social cohesion, social bonding between the slum dwellers. Encouragement and stimulation of self-help. Encouragement is need. Stimulation by outside agencies. Encouragement is needed from the outside agencies. Identification and development of local leadership, and development of civic consciousness. Use of professional and technical support. And training in democratic processes. Let's see, the four objectives are there in new development approach. Development of community feeling. The final results are these. Development of community feeling. This will help to eradicate the slum people by themselves only. Self-help improvement, indigenous leadership, cooperation between government and people. These four objectives would help to eradicate the slum completely. Next, the third one is Marxist and socialist approach. Finally, Marx says land in urban areas should be nationalized and removed from the orbit of market operation. In his economic perspective, he says that any land belonging to state should be removed from the market operation and should be nationalized and be given to those people who doesn't have any land or housing facilities. I hope you understand well. Thank you.